I was standing in the church that afternoon, dressed in the same suit I had worn when I lay on the hospital bed, begging God to let me live long enough to give her my kidney. Everyone turned when the music played. The woman I had saved, the woman I had loved, walked down the aisle in white lace. My heart pounded against my chest, but not with pride or joy. It was rage, because the man waiting at the altar for her was not me. It was my younger brother. Yes, my own flesh and blood. And in front of the priest, with hundreds of guests watching, I saw her slip her trembling hands into his. She looked at him the way she once looked at me. My lips went dry. My whole body stiffened. The church bells were ringing, but inside me, it felt like a death march. She whispered the vows I thought she'd say to me, the words I had rehearsed in my mind while the nurses pulled the tube out of my throat, the vows I thought would bind us forever. Instead, she gave them to him, my brother, and when the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," I swear I felt something inside me tear apart. I had given her my life, my blood, my kidney. But what she gave me at that altar, in front of God and everyone else, was betrayal deeper than a knife. And right there, as the guests clapped and cheered, I made a promise to myself. They would pay, both of them. But before I tell you what I did, and trust me, it will shake you, I need to take you back. Back to where it all started. Back to the family that raised me, and the secrets that were buried long before this wedding. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 32 years old, the eldest of 2 sons. My brother's name is Jason, 5 years younger than me, always a golden boy in everyone's eyes. Our parents, Richard and Elaine Carter, built their lives in a quiet town in Ohio. Dad was a retired cop. Mom ran a small bakery. From the outside, we looked perfect. But behind those walls, things were never truly simple. I was a quiet one, the one who carried everyone's burdens. Jason was a star, the athlete, the charming one, the kid who could never do wrong. Even when he did, people forgave him. I envied him at times, but I loved him. He was my little brother. I thought I'd die for him. Turns out I nearly did. And then there was her, Emily Hayes, the girl who moved into the house next door when I was 21. She had chestnut hair that caught the sun and a smile that could make you forget your own name. She became everything to me, my best friend, my girlfriend, my future. She was the reason I studied harder, worked longer, dreamed bigger. I believed we were meant to last forever. But forever is a cruel word. I remember the night it began, the night everything that led to that altar truly started. Emily fainted while we were out at dinner. One moment she was laughing, the next her face turned pale, and her body collapsed against the table. I rushed her to the hospital, shaking, terrified. Hours later, the doctor came in with words that shattered me. Emily's kidneys are failing. She'll need a transplant. Those words echoed in my skull. She was just 27. She was my everything. The thought of losing her made me nauseous. When the doctor asked if any family or close relatives could test for a match, I didn't hesitate. "I'll do it. Test me." Days later, when they told me I was a perfect match, I thanked God. But my parents, they begged me to think twice. My mom cried, saying, "Daniel, you only have 2 kidneys. If anything happens..." I cut her off. If anything happens to Emily, I'm already dead. I thought love was worth any sacrifice, even my own health. The surgery wasn't easy. I remember the cold room, the beeping machines, the oxygen mask over my face. I remember praying that I'd wake up because Emily needed me. When I finally opened my eyes, she was there, tears running down her cheeks, whispering, "You saved me, Daniel. I'll never forget this. Never." I believed her. God help me, I believed her. For weeks, she cared for me, cooked for me, slept by my side. I thought it was proof of her love. I thought my sacrifice had bound us tighter. But little did I know, it was just the beginning of my undoing. Because Jason, my younger brother, came home from college around that time. He started visiting, helping out, keeping me company. And slowly, I noticed things. Stolen glances, small laughs between them when they thought I wasn't looking. I brushed it off. I told myself I was paranoid. After all, Emily loved me. She owed me her life. But love doesn't always work the way you think it should. And debts of the heart are not paid in blood. The first real crack came one night when I found Emily's phone buzzing on the counter. A text lit up the screen. Can't stop thinking about you. Same time tomorrow? It was signed with a J. My hands shook as I stared at it. J. Jason. My brother. I wanted to believe it was someone else. Anyone else. But deep down I knew. And when I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She just stood there, tears in her eyes, whispering, "Daniel, I never meant for this to happen." My whole world crumbled. But that wasn't the end. That was only the start. Because betrayal has layers. It festers. It grows. And what they did to me afterward makes what I've told you so far feel like child's play. And it all led to one night. A night with flashing police sirens, blood on my hands, and the sound of cell doors slamming shut. But I'll get there. For now, let me tell you what happened after I saw that text. The night I saw that text, my world split in half. I sat in the kitchen, phone clutched in my trembling hand, staring at the message again and again, as if the words would somehow rearrange themselves and give me another truth. But they didn't. Can't stop thinking about you. Same time tomorrow? Jay, my little brother. The one I raised like a shadow when Dad was busy working double shifts and Mom was too tired to stay awake. The one I taught to ride a bike, to throw a football, to stand up to bullies. Jason, the boy I defended all my life. And the woman whose life I saved with my kidney was betraying me with him. I felt my chest tightening. My stitches from the surgery throbbed as if my body itself was revolting at the truth. I waited until Emily came out of the shower, her hair dripping water down her neck. She froze when she saw the phone in my hand. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "Say something." I whispered, my voice shaking. Her eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, Don't say my name like that. Just tell me it's not what I think." But she didn't. She couldn't. The silence between us was louder than any scream. And then she finally whispered, "I never wanted this to happen. I didn't plan it. Jason and I, we just..." My hand slammed against the table. "You just what?" "Fell into bed? While I was lying here with half my body cut open for you." She sobbed. "It wasn't about that. I love you, Daniel. I do. But Jason, he makes me feel alive in ways I can't explain." Those words nearly killed me. I stumbled back, gripping my side, staring at her like she was a stranger. That night, I packed a bag and left. My parents begged me not to do anything rash. Mom cried into my chest, whispering, "Please, Daniel, don't destroy yourself over this. You've already given too much." But the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't stay quiet. It grows louder in your mind every second. I spent days avoiding them both. But in a small town like ours, secrets don't stay hidden. Soon, whispers reached me. People said they'd seen Emily and Jason together, laughing in diners, walking by the lake. Like they weren't even trying to hide it. Like I was the fool in a circus they were performing for. One evening, I drove past the old bridge outside of town and I saw them. Emily leaning against Jason's car, his arm around her waist. Her laughter floated to the night air, the same laugh I once thought belonged only to me. Something snapped inside me. I pulled the car over, stormed across the gravel, and before Jason could even register what was happening, my fist connected with his jaw. He stumbled back, blood trickling from his lip. "You stole her from me." I roared. Jason wiped his mouth, smirking through the blood. "She was never yours to keep, Danny. You just thought she was." That smirk lit a fire inside me. I lunged at him, fists flying. Emily screamed, trying to pull me back, but I shoved her away. Jason fought back, harder than I expected. We rolled across the dirt, punching, kicking, cursing. Years of brotherhood were torn apart in those minutes. Then it happened. Jason grabbed a rock from the ground and swung it. The sharp edge connected with my temple, and white light exploded in my vision. I collapsed, blood running down my face. Emily shrieked, "Jason, stop. You'll kill him." And that's when the sirens came. Police cars screeched to a halt, red and blue lights painting the night. Hands yanked me up, cold cuffs biting into my wrists. I screamed. It was him. He attacked me. But Jason, clutching his jaw and playing the victim, told him I had ambushed him, that I couldn't accept the truth about him and Emily. The officers looked between us, then shoved me into the back of the car. The next morning, I was sitting in a holding cell, the metallic taste of dried blood still in my mouth. My father came to see me, his face a storm of fury and disappointment. "Daniel," he hissed, gripping the bars. "Do you know what you've done? Jason says you attacked him unprovoked. He's filing charges." My head spun. "Dad, you know me. You know I'd never." But he cut me off. "All I know is my sons are trying to kill each other over a woman. And you, Daniel, I don't even recognize you anymore." The trial came quickly. In court, Jason sat there with Emily beside him, her hand in his. They looked like the perfect couple, a fairy tale. I looked like the bitter, violent brother who couldn't let go. His lawyer painted me as unstable, obsessed, dangerous. The judge sentenced me to 6 months in county jail for aggravated assault. 6 months. While I rotted in a cell, Emily and Jason's love story blossomed for the whole town to see. Photos of them appeared in the paper. Engagement announcements were whispered in church. And every day I stared at the cracked ceiling above my prison bed, plotting. I had given Emily my kidney. Jason had taken her from me. And now they had taken my freedom too. But the thing about sitting in a jail cell is it gives you time. Time to think. Time to plan. Time to let anger boil until it becomes something sharper, deadlier. And I promised myself, as I counted those long days, that when I got out, there would be no forgiveness. There would only be payback. And when my release day finally came, when the gates opened and I stepped back into the sunlight, the first thing I saw was Emily's face on a wedding announcement pinned to the town board. Emily Hayes and Jason Carter. Wedding set for June 12th. The same day I had once planned to marry her. I tore that paper down, my fist shaking, my heart pounding. And I knew exactly what I had to do. Because if they thought I'd sit quietly while they stood at the altar, smiling, kissing, starting their life together, they didn't know me at all. Not anymore. June 12th. The day that should have been mine. I woke up before dawn that morning, the air heavy in my chest. My hands were steady, though. Too steady, almost unnatural. 6 months in jail had burned out every illusion I'd ever had about love, loyalty, and family. Now all that remained in me was one thing: resolve. I had promised myself that Emily and Jason's wedding would not end the way they thought, and I don't break promises. The church bells tolled in the distance as I dressed. I chose the same dark suit I wore the day I donated my kidney. The one I thought I'd wear at our wedding. Poetic in a cruel way. I slipped a letter into my inside pocket, sealed in an envelope, the edges trembling between my fingers. Then I left the house. The church stood tall on Main Street, draped in ribbons and flowers. Guests in colorful dresses and suits laughed as they entered, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. Some glanced at me as I walked up the steps, but no one dared say a word. They all knew who I was. The Carter son who attacked his younger brother, who went to jail, who couldn't handle losing the love of his life. They thought I was here to make a scene, to embarrass myself. They had no idea what I was really here for. Inside, the organ played. People turned as Emily walked down the aisle in her white dress. My heart hammered against my ribs. Her hand clutched the bouquet, but her eyes kept flicking to me, like a shadow she couldn't shake off. She knew I was there. She knew what I was capable of. Jason stood at the altar, smug in his tuxedo, his jaw healed from the night I'd broken it. He glanced at me, too, the corner of his mouth twitching upward, almost like a dare. The ceremony began. The priest's voice carried through church as he spoke about love, devotion, sacrifice. Every word was a blade. I had lived those words. I had bled for those words. And now they were using them for their own fairy tale. When it came time for the vows, Emily's voice shook as she recited hers. "I promise to love you, Jason, in sickness and in health." My stomach churned. In sickness and in health. The exact words she whispered to me when I was pale and weak, my side stitched from the surgery. And then the priest said it. If anyone here objects, speak now or forever hold your peace. The church went silent. My throat burned. My fists clenched. I could feel every eye waiting for me. They expected me to stand, to shout, to throw myself at them. But I didn't. Not yet. The priest smiled. Then, by the power vested in me. And that's when it happened. The heavy wooden doors at the back of the church slammed open. Gasps echoed. A man in a leather jacket stormed in, his face twisted with rage. It was Mark Hayes, Emily's older brother, the one who had sworn, years ago, that if anyone ever hurt his sister, he'd kill them. But the rage in his eyes, it wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at her. "You lying witch," Mark roared, his voice booming through the church. He held up a stack of papers in his hand. "You think you could keep this from us? That we'd never find out?" Emily's face drained of color. Jason turned, frowning. The guests whispered, confusion thick in the air. Mark marched down the aisle, throwing the papers onto the altar. They scattered across the floor, bank statements, contracts, and what looked like medical reports. "Emily's been draining Mom and Dad's accounts," Mark spat, pointing at her. "Tens of thousands of dollars, while pretending she was too sick to work. And you," he jabbed a finger at Jason, "you idiot, you think she loves you? She used Daniel for a kidney. She's using you for money. She's been planning this scam for years." The church erupted. People gasped, muttered, covered their mouths. The priest froze. Emily's bouquet slipped from her hands. "Mark, please, it's not what it looks like." "Shut up." Mark's voice cracked with fury. "You ruined this family. You used Daniel, you manipulated Jason, and you left Mom and Dad with nothing." His face twisted. "I should kill you right here." And in that moment, I realized something chilling. I had come here to destroy Emily and Jason. But now, I didn't have to lift a finger. The fire was already burning. Jason bent down, snatching one of the papers. His eyes scanned it, his face paling. "Emily, what the hell is this?" Her lips trembled. "Jason, I was going to tell you. I didn't want to lose you." He shoved her back. "Lose me? You used me." His voice cracked, echoing across the stunned congregation. "First my brother, then me. Is that what you do? Jump from one Carter to another?" The silence after his words was deafening. Emily collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Her veil slid off her head, pooling on the floor like a ghost. The perfect bride, shattered in front of everyone. And me? I sat there, watching it all unfold, my chest rising and falling with something I hadn't felt in months. Satisfaction. Pure, bitter satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Because while Emily's lies were exposed, while Jason's pride was torn apart, while the guests whispered and Mark raged, I knew the real reckoning hadn't even begun. This was just the spark. The real fire was still coming. And when it did, it would burn everyone. The church was no longer a holy place. It was a battlefield. Emily was still on her knees, clutching at Jason's pant leg, sobbing, while the congregation buzzed with murmurs and gasps. Mark's chest heaved, the veins in his neck bulging as he pointed at his sister, like she was some kind of criminal on trial. Jason ripped his arm free from Emily's grasp. "You disgust me," he spat, his face twisted with betrayal, the same kind I had felt the night I found her phone. But the difference was I had bled for her. He had only believed her lies. Emily screamed through her tears. "I loved you both. You don't understand. I just wanted..." Before she could finish, Mark surged forward, shoving her so hard she toppled against the altar steps. Her head smacked against the wooden edge, and she cried out in pain. Gasps erupted from the pews. "Mark!" the priest shouted, stepping forward. "This is God's house." But Mark wasn't listening. His eyes were wild, his fists clenched. "You don't get to cry your way out of this, Emily. You conned everyone. You broke Daniel. You ruined Jason, and you destroyed Mom and Dad. You've been playing us all like fools." Emily clutched her head, blood trickling down her temple. "Please stop. I can explain." But Jason had already picked up one of the papers Mark had thrown. His face darkened. He held it high for everyone to see. Bank transfers. Thousands of dollars straight into Emily's private account. She drained our parents' savings. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother, sitting in the second pew, covered her face and sobbed into my father's shoulder. And in that moment, Jason snapped. He grabbed Emily by the arm, yanking her up to her feet. You were going to marry me while stealing from my family? His voice cracked, rage tearing through him. You're nothing but a parasite. Emily screamed, tried to wrench free. Jason, please. I love you. Don't you dare say that word. He shoved her again. This time, she fell back into the pew, her bouquet scattering like broken glass across the floor. And something in me, something deep, dark, and dangerous, reared up, because as much as I hated her, as much as I wanted revenge, I couldn't stand there and watch my little brother turn into me, into the man who lost control, into the man who had once left Emily sobbing in the dirt by the old bridge. I shot up from the pew. Enough! All eyes turned to me. The room fell silent, except for Emily's ragged sobs. My chest rose and fell, my fists trembling. Jason's eyes narrowed. What? You could offend her now, Daniel? After everything? Mark barked a bitter laugh. Of course he is. He still loves her, even after she ripped him apart. The congregation whispered, words hissing like snakes. But I wasn't speaking for love. I wasn't even speaking for Emily. I was speaking because something worse was about to happen, and I knew it. Jason's face was red, twisted. His hand shot to the inside of his jacket, and when it came back out, my stomach dropped. He had a knife, a silver blade that caught the sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows. Screams erupted. The priest backed away, hands raised. My mother shrieked from the pew, Jason, no. Jason's voice broke as tears filled his eyes. She used us both, Daniel. Don't you get it? She deserves to die for what she's done. And in that moment, I knew. If I didn't move, someone was going to leave this church in a body bag. Emily scrambled backward across the floor, her dress tearing as she sobbed. Jason, please. I never meant. But he raised a knife. I lunged forward, slamming into him just as the blade came down. Gasps filled the air as the knife slashed across my arm instead of Emily's chest. Pain seared through me, hot and sharp, but I didn't let go. I tackled Jason to the ground, the knife clattering across the floor. The two of us rolled, fists flying. Years of resentment, betrayal, and rage exploded in every punch. He landed a blow at my jaw. I returned one to his nose. Blood sprayed. The congregation screamed. The priest shouted for someone to call the police. And then it happened. Jason scrambled for the knife. His fingers brushed the handle, and mine did too. We wrestled, both of us grunting, snarling like animals. My blood dripped onto the blade, slicking it red. Then, suddenly, Jason jerked, his eyes going wide. The knife was in his stomach. Silence. The church froze. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the blade buried in him. My hand still gripping the handle. Jason gasped, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Blood bubbled from his lips. Emily screamed. My mother collapsed in the pew, wailing. And me? I just sat there, my hand trembling, my brother bleeding out beneath me. The doors burst open again. Police stormed in, weapons raised, shouting, "Drop the knife!" My ears rang. My vision blurred. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. All I could do was stare at Jason's pale face, his eyes locked on mine with a look I'll never forget. Part hate, part fear, part something else. The officers ripped me back, slamming me to the floor, wrenching the knife from my hand. Cold steel pressed against my wrist as the cuffs clicked shut, and as they dragged me out of the church, the crowd parting in stunned silence. One thought echoed in my mind like a death sentence. I had just killed my brother. Or so it looked, because whether Jason lived or died, my life would never be the same. The siren screamed louder than my own heartbeat. The police car sped through the streets, lights flashing. As I sat cuffed in the back seat, my shirt soaked with Jason's blood. I pressed my forehead against the cold window, my mind spinning. Had I just killed my own brother? I could still feel the knife in my hand, the hot rush of blood pouring out of him, the way his eyes locked on mine like he had something to say, but couldn't. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. When we reached the station, the cops dragged me inside like I was already a convicted murderer. They shoved me into an interrogation room, left me there under the flickering fluorescent light. Hours passed. My mind replayed the scene again and again, every detail sharper than a blade. Finally, the door opened. My father walked in. He looked older than I remembered, his hair grayer, his shoulders slumped. His cop instincts must have been burning inside him, torn between being a father and a man of the law. He didn't sit. He just stood there, staring at me like I was a stranger. "Jason's in surgery," he said, his voice cold. "Doctors say he might not make it." My throat tightened. "Dad, it wasn't supposed to—" "Don't!" His voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare. I raised you better than this. You were supposed to protect him. Daniel. Not put a knife in his gut." I shook my head desperately. "It wasn't like that. He came at Emily with the knife. I stopped him. We fought over it. It went in by accident." Dad slammed his fist against the table. "You expect me to believe that? You hated him. You told me in jail you wanted revenge." My mouth opened, but no words came. He was right. I had wanted revenge. I had dreamed of it, planned it. The only thing I hadn't planned was killing my brother. Dad's eyes burned into mine. "If Jason dies, Daniel, you won't just lose your freedom. You'll lose your soul." He turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the cold silence. The next morning, the DA filed charges, attempted murder. The trial date was set in less than a month. In the meantime, Jason clung to life in the ICU. Emily, despite everything, never left his side. The newspapers called it the Carter wedding bloodbath. Everyone in town had an opinion. Some said I was jealous and snapped. Others whispered that Emily had manipulated us both from the start. But one person's silence screamed louder than all the gossip. My mother's. She didn't visit me, didn't call, didn't send letters. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was no longer her son. When the trial began, the courtroom was packed. Reporters lined the back row, their cameras flashing. I sat at the defendant's table, my lawyer whispering strategies I barely heard. My eyes stayed locked on the prosecution table, on Emily, sitting beside Jason, who was pale, thin, but alive. He'd survived. Part of me wanted to cry with relief. Another part wanted to vomit from the weight of what was coming, because Jason wasn't there to forgive me. He was there to destroy me. The prosecutor painted me as a jealous, unstable brother who couldn't stand losing his fiancée to his younger sibling. He replayed my assault charge, my jail time, my violent outbursts. He held up the knife in a plastic bag, shining under the courtroom lights like a trophy. Then Jason took the stand. He leaned heavily on the armrest, wincing from the pain in his abdomen, but his voice was steady, cold. "He came at me," Jason said, pointing directly at me. I tried to reason with him, but he attacked. I was defending myself when he grabbed the knife. "He stabbed me, Your Honor. He wanted me dead." I slammed my hands on the table. "That's a lie." The judge banged the gavel. "Order." My lawyer pulled me down, whispering harshly, "Daniel, shut up or you'll sink yourself." But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The jury had seen me lose control again. Emily was next. She sat there in her pale blue dress, her hair pinned back, eyes red from tears. She glanced at me once before staring down at her lap. "Daniel was obsessed," she said softly. "He couldn't accept that I moved on. He told me once that if he couldn't have me, no one could. I was afraid of him." Her voice cracked. "That night in the church, I thought he was going to kill Jason. I'll never forget the look in his eyes." The words cut deeper than any blade. I wanted to scream at her, tell the jury about her lies, the stolen money, the betrayal. But none of that mattered here. In this courtroom, I wasn't a victim. I was a monster. The verdict came down like thunder. Guilty. Attempted murder. Sentenced to 10 years. I didn't even feel the gavel slam. Didn't hear the murmurs of the crowd. I just sat there numb as the deputies cuffed me and dragged me toward the holding cells. As I passed the prosecution table, I locked eyes with Jason. He didn't smirk, didn't sneer. He just looked at me with something worse than hatred. Pity. That broke me more than the sentence. The gates of prison clanged shut behind me, sealing my fate. The stench of sweat and steel filled my lungs. The guard shoved me into my cell, the door clanging like a coffin lid. And that's when I found it. A letter, folded neatly on my bed. My hand shook as I opened it. The handwriting was elegant, feminine. It was from Emily. Daniel, I never wanted things to end like this, but you left me no choice. You were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Jason and I, we only want peace now. Please don't hate me forever. Maybe one day you'll understand why I did what I did. Tears blurred my vision. I crumpled the letter, rage boiling in my chest. Understand? No, I would never understand, because while they were free to live their lives, I was trapped behind bars. But what Emily didn't know, what Jason didn't know, was that prison doesn't break everyone. Some men rot, others sharpen. And me? I was sharpening. Because when I got out, and I would get out, there wouldn't be peace. There would only be war. 10 years. That's how long I spent in hell, sharpening my rage into a blade that never dulled. 10 years of steel doors clanging shut, of nights filled with screams, of mornings where the guards barked orders like we were animals. Some men broke. Some men became ghosts. Me? I became something else entirely. Prison didn't kill me. It forged me. Every push-up, every fight in the yard, every sleepless night staring at the ceiling turned me into a man with nothing left to lose. The only thing that kept me alive was one promise. When I walked out, I'd make Emily and Jason pay. When my release day finally came, I stepped into the sunlight, my body harder, leaner, my heart colder than ice. I expected Mom or Dad to be there, but no one came. The world had moved on without me. I walked the streets of the same town I once called home. It looked different, shinier, but underneath it was the same. Whispers followed me. The Carter brother who stabbed his sibling. The jealous ex-fiancé. The monster. Let them whisper. They had no idea what was coming. The first thing I did was head to the old house. My parents were gone, moved out years ago. The neighbors told me Dad died of a heart attack. Mom lived with Jason now. That cut deeper than a knife. My own mother had chosen him. The son who took everything from me. Over me. I needed to see it for myself. That night, I stood across the street from their home. A 2-story house with a perfect white fence. Flowers blooming in the garden. Through the window, I saw them. Jason, older, scar on his stomach hidden beneath a crisp shirt. Emily beside him, laughing. Her hair streaked with gray, but her smile still the same poison that once melted me. And 2 kids, blonde-haired, running to the living room, shrieking with joy. My stomach twisted. 2 children. A family. The life I should have had. The life they stole from me. I wanted to storm in, tear it all apart. But rage without patience is just noise. I had learned patience in prison. So I waited. For weeks, I watched them. I learned their routines. Jason left for work at 7 a.m. sharp. Emily dropped the kids at school and spent her afternoons at the same coffee shop downtown. Their nights were filled with laughter, homework, bedtime stories. A picture-perfect family. But pictures are easy to shatter. One night, I slipped a letter into their mailbox. Handwritten, no signature, just 5 words. You owe me your life. The next morning, I sat in my car down the block, watching Jason pick up the letter. His face went pale. He looked around, paranoid, before shoving it in his pocket. That was the beginning. The seed of fear. Days later, another letter. Blood for blood. This time, Emily found it. She dropped it, trembling, her eyes darting around as if I were hiding in the bushes. I was, but the letters weren't enough. Fear is only the appetizer. Revenge needs a main course. So I gave them one. Late one night, I broke into their garage. Jason's car sat there, shiny and spotless. I slipped under it, cut the brake lines, then slid back out as silent as a shadow. The next morning, Emily buckled the kids into back seat. My chest tightened. This wasn't about them. They were innocent. I couldn't let them be part of it. So at the last second, I stepped out from the trees, waving my arms. Emily slammed the brakes, what was left of them, and the car rolled to a stop just before the intersection. She jumped out, furious. "What the hell, Daniel?" Her voice cracked. She still remembered my face. She still remembered everything. I leaned against the hood, calm. "You should thank me. I just saved your kids' lives. You might want to check your brakes before driving again." Her eyes widened as she realized. You did this?" I leaned closer, my voice low. "I gave you my kidney. You gave me 10 years in a cage. You thought I'd forget?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Daniel, please, that was years ago. Jason, he didn't mean..." "Don't say his name." My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "He's next." She froze, terror flashing across her face. For the first time, Emily wasn't in control. And I loved it. That night, Jason came to find me. He waited outside the old bar at the edge of town. His face was hard, older, but his eyes still carried that same pity I hated. "You've had your fun," he said, voice steady. "Enough's enough. Stay away from my family." I laughed in his face. "Your family? That was supposed to be my family. You stole everything from me, Jason. First Emily, then Mom, then 10 years of my life." He stepped closer, jaw clenched. "You stabbed me. You nearly killed me. You think you can twist that into my fault." I leaned in until our foreheads almost touched. "You shouldn't have lived." And that's when it exploded. Jason swung first, his fist cracking against my jaw. I stumbled back, then came at him, years of rage fueling every punch. We tore through the alley like animals, blood flying, teeth cracking. This wasn't two brothers fighting. This was war. At some point, Jason grabbed a broken bottle from the ground. He swung it, slicing across my arm. I roared, tackling him into the wall. The bottle shattered, glass raining down. I pressed my forearm against his throat, pinning him. "You took my life." I screamed, blood dripping down my face. His lips curled into a snarl. "Then end it. Do it." My breath came in ragged gasps. My hand tightened around a jagged piece of glass. One stab. That's all it would take. But then I heard it. "Daddy." A small voice. "Hi," trembling. We both froze. His kid stood at the end of the alley, eyes wide with terror. Emily behind them, tears streaming down her face. Jason's chest heaved beneath me. His eyes locked on mine, no longer full of hate, just pleading. "Don't let them see this," he whispered. And for the first time in 10 years, I hesitated, because in their eyes, those innocent, terrified eyes, I saw myself. The boy I used to be, the brother who once protected instead of destroyed. My hand shook. The glass slipped from my grip, clattering to the ground. I staggered back, blood dripping onto the pavement. Emily rushed forward, pulling the kids behind her. Jason coughed, clutching his throat, staring at me with a mix of relief and sorrow. I turned and walked away into the night, my shadow stretching long and broken against the alley wall. The war wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time, I wonder if revenge was really about them anymore, or if it was about the monster I had become. Peace? No, that was never meant for me. The day I stood on Jason's porch, letter in hand, I felt it. How easy it would have been to forgive, to pretend the past could be buried. But forgiveness is a luxury for people who were never carved open and left bleeding. That night, I went back to my motel. I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection asked a question I've been dodging for years. Do you want peace or justice? And I knew the answer. Justice, but not with a knife, not with blood in the streets. That would only make me the villain. No, I want a revenge so clean, so devastating, that they'd feel it every single day they drew breath. I started with Jason's job. A few forged documents, an anonymous email to his boss, a whispered tip about financial misconduct. Within weeks, he was suspended, investigated, humiliated, Then Emily. I dug into her past, the debts she hid, the secrets she thought long buried. I sent them to the school board where she volunteered. Soon, whisper spread. The perfect wife, the perfect mother, tainted. But the final act, oh, that was my masterpiece. Their children. Not to harm them, never, but to tell them the truth. To sit them down one afternoon at the park, where Emily and Jason couldn't stop me, and explain who their father really was. How he stole his brother's fiancée. How he stood at the altar with a kidney in his body that wasn't his. How their happy family was built on betrayal. I watched their little faces twist in confusion, in fear, in anger. I left before Emily and Jason could reach me. But the damage was done. Seeds of doubt planted deep, ones that would grow every time those children looked at their parents. Jason and Emily thought they had destroyed me, but I had hollowed them out from inside, leaving them to rot while still smiling for the world. One rainy evening, I stood across the street from their house one last time. Through the window, I saw them sitting at the dinner table. Jason's shoulders hunched, Emily's face pale, the kids silent. A family shattered not by blood, but by truth. And I smiled, because peace is temporary. Forgiveness is fragile. But revenge lasts forever.